If you're a beginner or want to start learning Olympic weightlifting, then this video is for you. So I've been weightlifting for more than 10 years now, particularly practicing the Chinese weightlifting style. And if I had to learn from scratch and do it all over again, here's how I would learn weightlifting in 2026. First, I want to start off talking about my journey with weightlifting. So I grew up in Canada, and growing up, I was a really chubby kid. So like many other people, I started going to the gym and followed like bodybuilding routines to lose weight and gain muscle. This was back in the days of bodybuilding.com forums, 4chan Fitness, and YouTube Fitness, where the Hodge twins were making workout videos instead of political commentaries as they do today.
The fuck off me with that shit, man.
The most difficult thing when I first started was building that routine. But after 2 or 3 years following bodybuilding programs, it got very boring and repetitive. So then I tried out powerlifting for the next year or two. And when I got familiar with that, it also started feeling boring and repetitive. At the end of these workouts, my body didn't really feel great. It didn't feel athletic or agile. So that's when I thought I'd give Olympic weightlifting a try. And going into my freshman year of university at the University of Waterloo, I was studying mechanical engineering. I started training at the physical activity complex, this old dingy basement where all the varsity athletes and hardcore fitness people trained at. And this was my first exposure seeing Olympic weightlifting around me. I started asking questions and then became friends with the people who were training weightlifting there. And when I first started, I wasn't a superb athlete. I was strong, but I still had a lot of problems such as mobility, coordination, muscular imbalances, and pretty terrible technique. I tried my best learning from the peers around me and also watching online videos, but it was very frustrating, slow-paced, as it was extremely difficult to find proper weightlifting coaching. At that time, it just wasn't common at all. And this was at the time where Lu Xiaojun and Lao Hui and Team China was dominating weightlifting globally. And at that time, Coach Ma was doing seminars all over the world, and just happened later that year he was doing a seminar in Toronto. And at that time I was a student and I couldn't afford going to the seminar, so my friend that went got a hold of his contact. So he was coaching down in St. Louis, Missouri for Lindenwood University. I withdrew from my engineering program, took a 22-hour Greyhound bus to St. Louis from Toronto, and for that summer I learned Chinese weightlifting. And after that year, I still had to resume and finish my education back in Canada. But for years, I struggled, especially balancing school academics and also co-op, which were paid internships, on top of my training, which I would soon face the reality that my ambitions of becoming a competitive or professional weightlifter was in the trash bin. It wasn't happening. I took some time off from training to find a new motivation, a new purpose to do Olympic weightlifting. My love for the sport was still there, and instead of chasing heavy numbers all the time, it became more of a self-exploration of my body, learning how to avoid injuries, fixing my muscular imbalances. And I have mild ADHD, which weightlifting then became a sharpening stone for my mind and focus. At last, I finally found my personal reason for me to keep training in the long run. And today I want to talk about all the things that I've learned and what I would do differently if I could start learning weightlifting again in 2026. The top 3 reasons on why you should start practicing and learning Olympic weightlifting is: 1, it's great for strength and power. If you're training another sport coming from a different background that demands strength and power, weightlifting is a fun and dynamic exercises that you can incorporate in your strength and conditioning program. Second reason why is weightlifting is great for your posture, your mobility, and your overall athleticism. It's one of the few sports that require a lot of strength and demand overhead. Since both the snatch and the jerk ends up with weight being supported overhead, it really aligns your spine and posture being able to do so. And this is great for your thoracic spine, upper extremities like your shoulders in the long run. You find that a lot of elderly people have a hunchback, and even if they're physically active, their posture decays over time. But weightlifting, the persistent training of that upper back and shoulder strength to support weight overhead will future-proof your posture. And the last reason is Olympic weightlifting is cool and is constantly engaging. And as I said before, when I was doing bodybuilding and powerlifting, it was rather quick for me to get bored of it. But doing weightlifting for so long, the complexity of the technique still keeps me very engaged every time I go into training. And after all these years, I'm still refining, optimizing, and learning more about myself to improve my technique and strength. The reason why you shouldn't do weightlifting is that it has a very steep learning curve. It's not a sport that you can just go in for a year and get the hang of it. It takes 3 to 4 years to get decent technique. And I highly recommend finding a good coach, which is a problem in itself, finding the right guidance, the right coach to teach you weightlifting properly. And secondly, it's very hard to learn if you have injuries or mobility problems when you start in the sport. Techniques for the snatch, clean, and the jerk really demands mobility, unlike any other sport. Improving and maintaining your mobility requires constant work as well. So if you don't have the time or dedication to hold yourself accountable in doing your mobility exercises, it's very tough to improve and the risk of injury will grow higher. So it forces you to learn about your own body. And if you're not willing to do that homework, then maybe weightlifting is not for you. And lastly, weightlifting is not great for fat loss. Although it can help, there are much better training methodologies that you can do to lose weight. Activities such as CrossFit, kickboxing are all much more metabolic demanding than Olympic weightlifting. And when you're lifting heavy, your body will naturally want to hold on to weight so that it helps you preserve your strength. But if you want to incorporate weightlifting part of your fat loss journey as a fun and intriguing way to have a good workout, then it still might be for you. So here's how I would learn weightlifting if I had to start all over again in 2026. If you're fortunate enough to have a gym near you that offers weightlifting classes or even CrossFit, it would be a good place to start and get familiar with the sport. This way you'll have some guidance learning about your technique. But if you're an absolute beginner where even the squat, deadlift, and overhead press is unfamiliar to you, I recommend just starting with those fundamentals, okay? And especially squatting like all the way down, ass to grass, and getting a good front rack for your shoulder press. These two movements are extremely common in weightlifting, and it's better to get a good grasp of them before you start to learn more complex movements. You might run into a risk of poor coaches. Having a bad coach is worse than having no coach. These bad coaches might teach you the wrong cues, patterns, and movements for weightlifting, and once you learn the wrong things, it's going to be much harder to fix down the road. It also depends on what your preferred style to be. And if you're here watching this video, most likely you're interested in the Chinese style. But it's very rare to find coaches that teaches the Chinese style. In the last 3 years, Coach Ma and I have worked very hard on our online course, where it has over 3 hours of instructional video plus very detailed course notes. And these course notes break down all the fine details of Chinese weightlifting techniques. And I worked on this online course with Coach Ma as something that I wish I had when I first started doing weightlifting. If you're keen on learning the Chinese weightlifting techniques and details, it's something I highly encourage all of you to get. Now let's talk about the techniques to focus on. Starting out with overhead. Since most of our lifts will end up in the overhead position, it's incredibly important that you get this right. If your overhead is offset or skewed, then the bar path and the rest of your pole will be biased that way. If you look at your lift as a map, your point A is starting with the barbell on the ground, and your point B is catching the weight overhead. So we need to get a strong definition of point B of where we're going before we even start. The second technique I want you to focus on is the pull. Starting from the knee or the hips, you can start to practice the snatch pull, having the right balance on your feet, getting a good contact with the bar, and keeping the balance pushing through your ball of foot in your extension. I see a lot of people lifting in a rush where they skip the contact point, pulling too prematurely with their arms, and will lead to a lot of inefficiencies in the rest of your pull. So taking your time mastering this hang snatch pull will set you up for success. And to bring it all together, the last exercise I recommend is the muscle snatch. As a beginner, I wouldn't worry too much about getting low in the squat snatch. The muscle snatch ensures that your bar path is relatively straight, and also you're using your body the right way. If you're starting from the floor in the starting position, going the first pull, second pull, contact, and extension, and then turning overhead into the muscle snatch will help you master a straight and correct bar path before you start doing more complex movements like the power snatch or squat snatch. So now let's talk about programming. What's the right program for a beginner? Well, it depends what you're doing on top. If you're doing CrossFit or another sport, weightlifting can be added into your program where you carve out like the first 30 minutes of your workout just purely focused on weightlifting. And if you are looking for a beginner's program, we have it available on coachma.net as a beginner program for everybody to follow the progressions of learning Olympic weightlifting. But it's 2026, and if you want something that's specifically tailored to you, I highly recommend using ChatGPT or another form of AI. Tell them exactly what you're looking for, what you want to work on, and it will generate you an online program. As a beginner in Olympic weightlifting, periodization doesn't really matter to you right now. You should be focused on learning the techniques. So in each workout, you shouldn't be lifting more than 70 to 80% of your max. So don't worry too much about strength. And I would try to record myself with my phone to review my technique and watch professional weightlifters and kind of do a comparison. Am I getting my pull right? Am I going fast? Am I catching at the right angle overhead? So use your cell phone and do a lot of self-review, and you'll see in which ways that you can improve your technique. And lastly, I want to talk about mentality and motivation for training Olympic weightlifting. As I described earlier on my journey, starting out, I was very ambitious and I want to be a professional weightlifter, eventually a coach. Later down the road, I faced reality that I wasn't a natural born athlete, and my ambitions of becoming competitive soon faded. For all the young people in their teens and 20s, you guys might have a shot. I encourage you to practice weightlifting and have hopes to be ambitious. But for people who are learning weightlifting later in their life, you don't need to be competitive in Olympic weightlifting to enjoy training. Weightlifting is extremely demanding, both technically, physically, and psychologically. And when you're starting out, just throwing the bar overhead can be extremely intimidating. But once you learn how to bail properly, your fear gets less and less. And even if you don't come from a strength and conditioning background, weightlifting is actually easier for you to learn. You don't have the same bad habits and mistakes as people who has been lifting, so it makes you much easier to learn and teach. And as you get older, there's a lot of benefits that comes with weightlifting, like bone density, posture, and overall mobility. It's a fun and engaging sport that you can add to your life without going out of your way. And you don't need to burden yourself with expectations of getting higher and higher numbers. Do it for the fun, do it for the health, do it for the community. Those are all valid reasons to learn weightlifting. And at this point in my life, I'm trying to build a community and encourage more people to learn Olympic weightlifting. So I hope this video helped for those who are starting out in learning Olympic weightlifting. It might seem very intimidating and difficult to learn at first, but once you get a hold of the things, it can feel extremely rewarding. It's something that I hope that I can practice the rest of my life, and it makes my body feel amazing. When I move to different places and countries for work and whatnot, I make a lot of friends at the gym just simply doing weightlifting with good technique and give them the guidance I wish I had when I first started. And if you want more tips and questions about weightlifting, please leave them in the comment below. I can either answer them in the comment section, or it makes a great topic for my next video. And thank you, and I'll see you next time.